それでは閉会のご挨拶へと入らせていただきます。
We would like to begin the closing session. Please take your seats. At this time, in closing the ISAP 2016, on behalf of the organizers, Hideyuki Mori, President of IGES, would like to say a few words.
Session. The number of participants at the closing session has been drastically reduced, but nevertheless, this is concluding session. And just before this, our staff gave me this note I should cover in this closing remarks. The first thing I'd like to emphasize is number of participants in this ISAP 2016. The number of participants yesterday and today put together comes to more than 1,100. This is far more than last year. And we are very happy with this. This is not because of ISAP, but because of the two important agreements made last year, Paris Agreement and SDGs. Now we are very happy that so many participants we had for this year. And I'm going to make this statement English and Japanese interchangeably. Now I move into Japanese part. Because I've got a memo from our staff, and just I'd like to say important points we would like to share with you in this closing session. 今回のISAP では、SDG と、パリ協定2つの大きな
During this ISAP 2016, we were able to discuss both the Paris Agreement and the SDGs, two important decisions, and how to implement the two was the focus of many of the discussions. We were able to welcome representatives from the NGO community, local municipalities, and of course the UN and other international institutions as well, World Bank and such. Speakers represented various disciplines. I think we were all able to engage in deep and insightful discussions. First, talking about the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement was adopted last year in Paris. Speaking behind the scenes, about behind the scenes, an important factor was shared and the passion. So we talked about the Paris Agreement, what went behind the scenes before the achievement of the Paris Agreement. That is, for one, strategy, the passion and the planning that went behind the Paris Agreement, the importance of efforts towards plans towards 2050, the low carbon pathways, for example, and how to boost ambitions regarding the SDGs. Likewise, similar discussions were held during this ISAP, especially focusing on Asia. In implementing the SDGs, the key issue is to set up a state or national plan. That process is already underway. But once the system is set up, then what's important is to collect data, to manage data, and also to consider means of implementation, such as funding, and to build capacity as well. One important point is personal impression is the importance of the National Statistics Authority as a new stakeholder, because data has to be managed properly, collected and managed properly. In order to implement the Paris Agreement and the SDGs, to repeat the keyword many times, it's important to involve multiple stakeholders. if this forum was of any use, to that end, we as organizers, were quite happy. Due to such endeavors, the governments and international organizations, of course, should spearhead efforts, but not just that, not just those entities, but also local governments, NGOs, business, academia have equally important roles. That was talked about as well. In the end, the business model will change, and our lifestyles are likely to change as well. That's a factor, an important factor, and hopefully we can engage in more dialogue going forward.
To English part. And so thank you very much for your participation in the last two days. And we are very happy that we were able to have very constructive and enthusiastic discussions with you. Thanks to your participation, we found the last 2 days very productive and interesting. And this year, we had perhaps even better performance than compared to previous years. And we would like to continue this, and very much looking forward to meeting with you next year in the ISAP 2017. Thank you very much.
森社長
Thank you very much, Mr. Mori. And in closing, we would like to call upon Mr. Kazuhiko Takemoto, the president of a research organization for collaboration study of sustainability. Well, thank you very much indeed for participation for all the people here. And I would like to say a few words in closing, representing the host. And I have a text for my greeting, but since Mr. Mori elaborated on the outcome of ISAP 2016, so I would like to skip the points mentioned already by Mr. Mori, and I would like to make my personal closing comments and to share them with you. And this ISAP is the 8th ISAP, and so in 2015 there have been two important agreements on such as the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. And in this year, in the G7 summit held in May, and the ministerial meetings in conjunction was served as a venue for driving implementation under the two international agreements. And I would like to share with you my impression of this ISAP. And in the beginning of the first day of ISAP, we invited Ambassador Tubiana, who was one of the key members of the negotiation towards Paris Agreement. It was a very meaningful presentation, and also the lessons gained through the international negotiation was the fact that repeated and tenacious efforts are the key for successful outcome of the such negotiations, and we managed to share that. And this is all thanks to the fact that France, as a hosting and a chairing nation, made a great effort towards establishing the mutual understanding leading up to the negotiation of the Paris Agreement. And this venue of ISAP is participated by people from all different backgrounds, and ISAP provides a venue for these people to get together to discuss the common topics and the challenges and also to formulate the atmosphere to work together for resolving the issues for the future. And so now that the agreements have been reached, all the countries, the member nations, are working towards formulating the concrete plans for implementing the INDCs, and such initiatives have to be accelerated. And so there will be vigorous and also unprecedented breakthrough and innovative approaches are expected towards the 2050 pathway. And SDGs, the implementation have already been in place in the world, and as covered in sessions yesterday. And as mentioned by Mr. Mori, I'm very appreciative for everyone to stay until the very end of this year's ISAP, and also the stakeholders. It is understanding that we have gained that all the stakeholders will need to act in a responsible manner to actively participate in the implementation of SDGs for further acceleration of such actions. And also, we cannot repeat the old style, say, aid for development, and we need to adopt the new way of thinking, a new way of acting. Otherwise, we'll be left behind from what is actually needed by the initiatives. And so we need to change our mindset for being successful in future. And this was also highlighted in the city session earlier as well. So we have to make a shift from the future cities to SDGs cities. And in Asia Pacific region, it's a very important region, and this region will not only lead the way in the global initiatives, and this area is full of issues and challenges. And for the SDGs, the national targets will be set by each country. And I just also explained about the pilot studies. And in terms of connecting the global target and each nation, the regional initiatives are crucial. And in that sense, the role of ISAP is of much importance, and we are very excited about their outcome. And we would like to share the information as much as possible with all the stakeholders. And in closing, so we started ISAP very quietly in 2009, and Mr. Mori's idea is that give birth to a small baby and raise it to a big child. And so I think now that ISAP is 8 years old, we have managed to have a very fruitful and meaningful discussion and outcome of ISAP this year. In that sense, the role, so the discussion will be based on the research outcome of IGES, and this so through the policy discussion, we would like to work with IGES to make a contribution for the betterment of the world. And so it is I can sense that there's increasing amount and also the variation of responsibilities that we have to fulfill going forward. Thank you very much for your participation. Mr. Takemoto, thank you very much. So this concludes the 8th International Forum on Sustainability for Asia and the Pacific over 2 days. And thank you very much for your active participation out of your very busy schedule.